maybe stirring attends many of the
and Jackie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Jewish Fireside Chat. This is the moment. So a formal welcome to each and every one of you. On behalf of the Jewish Learning Institute, Chabad of Winnipeg, we are so fortunate and excited to have with us Rabbi Duchman from Dubai. Cannot believe that we have this opportunity to speak with Chabad of Dubai, coming to us live in Winnipeg. And we also have with us Mr. Ben Cohen, who will be conducting the interview. I am super excited personally about this because Rabbi Duchman happens to be Adina's cousin, my cousin. So I'm excited to see him. I don't get to see him often, especially in Dubai, especially during Corona. So we are very fortunate and excited. We apologize for, I know it must be, I think it's 5:30 a.m. in Dubai. So our sincere apologies. Thank you for your dedication and commitment and for being there for us. Just before we start, I want to wish everybody, I want to explain that this is one of a series of virtual lectures under the banner of Jewish Fireside Chats. So this is another Jewish Fireside Chat. It's the first of our winter series, and we will be having a virtual lecture every second week, every second Wednesday evening. So a warm welcome, and I say a warm welcome because in Winnipeg we have very frigid temperatures, Rabbi Duchman. It's been very, very cold. So we're hoping that you will warm us up and turn on the spark of the fire, the fire of Judaism. I just want to also share a cute joke before we start. So there's this story told of a man sitting in a train on a subway, and he's sitting in the subway and he has an Arab newspaper opened up and he's reading the newspaper. And another Jew approaches and he says, Moshe, have you lost your mind? An Arab newspaper? So Moshe responds, he says, well, you know, I used to read the Jewish newspapers and, oh yeah, brach, oy veiz mir, he says, Jews, the headlines read, Jews are being persecuted, Israel is being attacked, the Jewish population is dwindling, so much tourists, so much assimilation, Jewish people living in poverty. So he says, I finally decided to switch to the Arab newspapers. And now Jews own all the banks. Jews control the media. Jews are rich and powerful. So he says the news here is so much better. But I think that this joke may be a little bit outdated. So I'm sure we will find out tonight about this new agreement and about life in Dubai, Jewish life in Dubai. So without further ado, we welcome you and sit back, enjoy. After the formal presentation, the formal interview between Mr. Cohen and Rabbi Duchman, you will have an opportunity to leave your questions in the chat box, and we will get to it. Ben.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi Shmuley, and welcome to Rabbi Duchman. I had the opportunity to meet Rabbi Duchman briefly when I attended the Chabad Kinus conference 2 years ago in New York. It was a truly a bucket list experience to be there. And Shmuley introduced me to Rabbi Duchman, and of course I was shocked that he was based in Dubai, and I thought he would be running sort of a subterranean secret agent type of organization, and was very pleasantly surprised to hear that in fact that wasn't the case, and that there was a very open and growing Chabad presence in Dubai, and it's very timely to have this fireside chat in light of the new Abraham Accords and the wonderful opening up of peace and friendship between the UAE, Israel, and the Jewish people. And so we welcome you, Rabbi Duchman. Thank you for joining us at 5:30 a.m. And maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about how long you've been in Dubai and what took you there in the first place.
Yeah, so good morning or good evening. First of all, Rabbi Shmuley, it's great to see you. I think without Corona, I was looking up flights to Winnipeg. I think it like takes a day and 8 hours. Like that's how far we are. So it's quite a distance. And Ben, great to see you again. Yes, I remember very, very well us meeting by the conference, and really nice to see you again. I will start that our community has a special connection with your community because the Canadian ambassador to the UAE is actually a Jewish woman. And she is part of our community. So it's quite exciting to sit together with another community in Canada. And I did invite her, but I didn't think she would show up at 5:30 in the morning. But I'll definitely report to her after how beautiful your community is. So thank you again, Rabbi Shmuley, for the opportunity, and nice to meet all of you. So I moved to Dubai about 6 years ago. Before Dubai, I was living in Morocco, in Casablanca, Morocco, where my brother-in-law and sister are the Chabad emissaries. Morocco is very special for Chabad, as it is the home to the first shaliach. The first Chabad, the first shliach that the Rebbe sent out was to Morocco, to a city of Meknes. So Morocco is also a special place, and it was quite a nice place to start off.
Wow, very very nice. And tell us a bit about what is the community like there? I mean, how big is it? How many, what kind of community do you have? I think it's different than Bahrain, for example, which has a historic Jewish community that has been there for many generations. So tell us a bit about the local community there.
Yeah, so our community is definitely different than the other communities, I would say, in the region. Many of the Jewish communities in the region, if you look at Lebanon or Syria, or Morocco, the Maghreb, or Tunisia, Algeria, there's Jewish communities were there for generations, for hundreds of years. Then you have Bahrain, where Bahrain, you actually have most of the Jews there are mixed from Iran and Iraq, and they're there from the early 1900s, so not that long ago. But our community is relatively new. The Jew that lived here the most is just about 40 years ago, and there's only a very few of them. Most of them moved here, I would say, in the past 5-10 years. So we have quite a new community. Our community members really come from all over the world, including Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, as well as Sephardic Jews from some of the countries which I just mentioned.
And so how large is the community?
We have a few hundred families, and we sense that there's probably a few thousand Jews living between Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
And just tell us a little bit about, for those who aren't so familiar with the UAE, tell us a little bit about the UAE as a country. It's a combination of 7 individual sheikdoms. Tell us a little bit about the type of country that you live in.
Yeah, so the UAE is actually like a federation. So you have 7 emirates. You have the capital of Abu Dhabi, that's where the ruling family lives, the ruling family of the UAE, the Al Nahyan family. And then you have Dubai, which is more of a well-known emirate, I would say, where you have its ruling family as well, the Al Maktoum family. Then you have another 5 emirates: Sharjah, Fujairah, Ajman, Al Quwain.
It's really a unique country in that it's this federation of semi-autonomous states, and so what's the community situation like? What type of services do you have? You have shuls? Do you have what facilities? What facilities do you have there now?
Our community is quite a unique community. Well, even before the Abrahamic Accord and the official ties between the UAE and Israel, our community was here for many years, and we always had shuls both in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi. We have opened a Talmud Torah for children to come learn the alphabet, prepare for their bar and bat mitzvah after school. We had kosher slaughtering, so our own shechita, our own kosher chicken, and as well we've really had everything that a Jewish community needs to function. And this was pre-Abrahamic Accord. We've always had and have very strong support from the leadership in this country and the government. They've always very much supported our community. So we've really been safe, comfortable, and nice young Jewish community.
It's wonderful to hear, and maybe different than some of our expectations, that you're living in a country that previously had no relationship with the state of Israel, didn't recognize the state of Israel. Many countries in that circumstance don't have such friendly relationships with Jews, and so you've never experienced anti-Semitism, antagonism, or difficulties.
No, there was never any anti-Semitism or any negative. There's only positive energy. Well, the founding father of the United Arab Emirates was a man. His name is His Highness Sheikh Zayed, and for him, he very strongly the values shared that the values of the country is the values of tolerance, respect, acceptance, coexistence. So there's many communities here, not only the Jewish community, there's communities from many other religions here that feel comfortable and are encouraged to pray the way they want, or everyone has their community and their.
Oh, it sounds like a wonderful heterogeneous and peaceful place to live. I know it's very attractive for business people and for expatriates. I know that there are many large corporations have big expat populations. So do you have a lot of transient? You have a lot of transient people coming on contract work, and does that affect your ability to fundraise? People come for a year or two, and then they move on. So what's the situation like from that perspective?
Yeah, well, in some ways, Dubai is one big airport, like you mentioned. We are actually in about 5-hour radius from over 2 billion people. So this gives quite an extended population of people that like to come through to Dubai, or like you mentioned, large corporate companies with offices. So of course we have visitors or expats or professionals that would come just for a few months or for a year or two. Then we have others that stay for much longer. So I would say we have a bit of both.
Well, wonderful, and you've put together a self-sustaining organization. We know that the Chabad model, everyone thinks that funding comes straight from New York, but it's a decentralized local fundraising model. So have you been successful in getting the critical mass together?
Yes, so Baruch Hashem, we are still every day is working, but of course we encourage the people that we service to support us and to help us, and we continue to grow with different activities, and like every Chabad, like you guys I'm sure know by you, every day new exciting activities, new programs for children, new programs for families, etc.
Oh, so you've got a self-sustaining model. It sounds like now you've got a lot of wind at your back with the Abraham Accords and tremendous amount of Israeli investment and business people coming back and forth, and so you should be very much on a growth trajectory.
Yes, so naturally, since the Abrahamic Accord, and more Israelis besides the embassy in Abu Dhabi and the consulate in Dubai, of course, there's been quite an influx of Jewish families moving to the UAE, not only from Israel, but from Europe as well, from France, from the UK, some Americans as well. So yes, our community, I would say in the past few months has definitely grown.
Well, it's wonderful. And I'll ask you a follow-up question from a question I asked you 2 years ago, and I pressed you a bit and said, so what does it feel like to do you walk on the street with a kippah openly in Dubai? Do you at the time you said, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you do everything, but you don't wear your hat in public. But so what is it like? You walk openly with kippah, you feel comfortable, and how do people react to you?
So this is definitely one big change which happened since the Abrahamic Accord. Pre-Abrahamic Accord, I would say there was never any issue with walking around with a kippah, but definitely members in our community kept a lower key. This was for multiple reasons, either some working for large companies or their partners or colleagues in work, which they just weren't sure what their opinion was or wasn't. But since the Abrahamic Accord, people are, including myself, walk around feeling very freely as a Jew, very proud as a Jew, in a Muslim country, and especially a country with leaders. Here, the saying is that the guest of our leaders is our guest, and the fact that the UAE leadership opened their doors to Israel and invited all the Israelis to come. So naturally, we become the guest of everyone here, and everyone shows tremendous respect both to our community and to our visitors.
With all due respect to our wonderful country of Canada, it sounds almost ideal as a wonderful open society, a tolerant society. From a commercial standpoint, very much a booming hub, which only should grow. And so, do you speak Arabic? I mean, did you have a big adjustment when you got there?
Yes, so I do speak Arabic, even though one can get around just fine in English. Dubai is quite an international country, but I did have the opportunity to learn Arabic and to speak, read, and write it. But if anyone comes, if you don't speak Arabic, you could still get around just fine.
I'd imagine most of the expats who work for these multinationals, English is the international language, and they probably get along just fine.
Yes, English is just fine. If you speak a little French as well, that could be helpful. But English is.
And so you mentioned the kashrut, that you have kosher shechita, and otherwise are there kosher opportunities? You come for come there for a week. Are there kosher restaurants? Are there kosher facilities there?
So this is an interesting question. Since the Abrahamic Accord, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed has put out a notice to all the hotels in the capital, in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, that every hotel should have a kosher option. Like that, if any guests come, they should have a kosher option. So we have a kosher agency called Emirates Agency for Kosher Certification, where we have an agreement with the Abu Dhabi government to service all these hotels. So if you're visiting Abu Dhabi, you'll definitely, in the hotel, you'll be able to order kosher food, either from a kitchen in the hotel, or they just order something right nearby. So this is something unique. We as well have a kosher restaurant in the world's tallest building, in the Burj Khalifa. So if you come to Dubai and you climb all the way to the top of the building, you could come down and enjoy a kosher steak. So this is definitely another great kosher perk we have here.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds they've really put out the welcome mat for Israelis and and certainly put out the welcome mat for Jews from everywhere. Um, what about the politics? I mean, do people mention, conflict and, not, there are a lot of places in the world where, Israel is a hot button. Um, so it sounds from what you're saying that's not the case.
Well, I think I missed part of the end of your.
No,
You froze a little.
do you get a negative? Do you get any negative feedback about
I'll
Israel?
answer.
Mhm.
So no. First of all, as a rabbi here in the Middle East, I never get involved in politics between the countries, etc. Of course, there are people that been living here for multiple years, and people coming from their home country, where I would say there's previous pain between what they learned about Israel. But this is really where the opportunity of our community comes in, that when we have a thriving community here in the UAE and we're interacting with people, whether they're from Jordan, from Egypt, many from Palestinian descent, and they have this interaction with the Jewish community, and we build a respect between the Jewish community and them, and we service each other and we help each other. Of course, this brings them to a realization that this what they saw in the media, or this what they heard their parents or grandparents speaking negatively to them, doesn't they see the complete opposite? So this is actually a great opportunity for our community. And anytime a community member, the new community member arrives or a tourist comes to town, I tell them that you guys are ambassadors of Hashem to really walk around and show, no, this is the real Jewish people. This is the real Am Yisrael, where we show care for each other, respect for each other. And I've definitely seen tremendous change between myself and my new relationships that I have here with the Muslim community, and as well as our other members in our community.
It's again, I just can't tell you how wonderful that sounds. We've had a couple of comments to the chat, but please feel free to post questions for Rabbi Duchman. I have a few more questions for him, but certainly we take questions from everyone. I see we're up to 33 participants right now. I have to tell you, Rabbi Duchman, I was especially proud to read about you. I think it was in the Jerusalem Post. It may have been another Israeli website. After the Abraham Accords, you had a special phone call from the Prime Minister of Israel. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is actually, it's interesting you're asking this question after what I just mentioned. So when the Prime Minister has called and we had a Zoom call together, what the Prime Minister said is that yes, it's great that the leadership of the both countries on a political level just recognize each other, but he was saying how important it is for the communities to connect with the other communities as well. And this new relationship shouldn't only stay on the top level. And of course, we told the Prime Minister that this is something we've been doing here for many years, building strong relationships between the communities. Now, this is not only something I've been doing here in the UAE. I'm part of this alliance of rabbis in Islamic states, where we get together different rabbis from many Islamic states, and we discuss these same. I wouldn't call them challenges. I would call them opportunities for our community to engage with the other communities and really share values of tolerance, share values of acceptance, and this is something which we already see change in the region from this, and we really work strongly together to continue. Like the Rebbe told us, with a little bit of light, you push away a lot of darkness, and this is something which we are really working together. Like I said, with my colleagues in the other countries, other neighboring countries, to continue spreading the light and to continue inspiring the Arab youth and sharing with them what the Jewish community is about, and to show them the importance of learning from each other. So this is something as well which we work on.
I think you have a very important message there about the ground up community relationships and the peace that comes from the bottom up. I had the opportunity to daven at the Chabad in Baku, Azerbaijan, and I walked through central Baku with a kippah on Shabbat morning with a rabbi. Felt totally comfortable in that country, much more comfortable than I felt in Vienna and other places in Europe. And so you see the importance of these relationships in the Muslim world. And maybe you can give us a little hint. I mean, you're on the ground there. We've had now 4 peace accords in the Abraham, as part of the Abraham Accords. Tell us, what are the rumblings? Will there be more, and who's next?
All right. So first of all, it's great to hear that you're in Baku. Rabbi Segal is quite an active member in our alliance of rabbis.
Oh yeah, great guy.
And he's really doing great work in Baku, and as well as he's a great on. He does very active on our alliance as well. So I'm glad you enjoyed your time in Baku. Now,
Nice.
of course, like I mentioned, you guys would know this. You live in yesterday I had an interesting conversation with the Chabad rabbi in Siberia. Basically, we are building a new mikvah here in the UAE. Now, a mikvah needs natural rainwater, but unfortunately, we're living in a desert and there's no rainwater. So the only solution is to bring frozen rainwater. So rainwater which is frozen, but not frozen in a vessel, because once a water goes into a vessel, it's no more, let's call it kosher. So you actually have to take from a lake and cut out like blocks of ice and bring it to the UAE. So we had my Chabad colleague, Chabad rabbi in Siberia, go out to the freezing cold and fill up a full shipping container, 40-foot container of ice, which goes into a freezing truck and then it continues on its way to the UAE. And I've asked him, I'm like, wow, Rabbi, I don't know how you manage to live in this freezing cold. And he's like, well, I don't know how you manage into living in this boiling hot. How do you walk? How do you walk around? And we're like, okay, so we had the real 2 extremes. Well, like I mentioned, when someone is cold,
I just want to jump in here for a second, Rabbi Duchman. We would have been more than happy to supply you with as much ice and snow as you needed.
But as you mentioned, I don't get involved in politics, but as you mentioned in the beginning, the Canadians, I don't know how excited they would be to crossing borders with Corona. Maybe the ice will have Corona. They're a little bit more to the extreme. But post-Corona, the new mikvahs the new water from other places in the region will definitely get from your neck of the woods. So yes. So when someone is cold, you have 2 ways to warm yourself up. You could either put on a coat or you could light a fire. The difference is when you put on a coat, you warm yourself up. When you light a fire, you warm others as well. So I definitely feel that in the region, starting from the UAE, they've lit this fire of peace with this relationship with the UAE, and it's spreading. The light is spreading. It spread to Bahrain, to Morocco, and of course, when other youth are seeing these beautiful tweets on Twitter from how the relationship is thriving between the Emiratis, between the Bahrainis, between the Moroccans, definitely other countries are becoming more and more thirsty to do this recognition. And if you ask me, of course, I think it's just a matter of time till the Israel could start really working together with its neighbors and being part of a region. So this is definitely something I see in the near future.
It was wonderful. Can you give us a little hint? Any rumblings that you hear on the ground? Who might be next?
We don't yet know who has the zechut, the merit to be next.
Well, we appreciate your circumspect and and it really is it's a wonderful trend, and we certainly all hope that it continues and expands. And it's wonderful to see the warm peace in the UAE versus the much colder peace that Israel has with Jordan and Egypt. This seems to be truly a commercialized and on the ground type of peace and relationship.
Yeah, but even if you look now recently, sorry for interrupting, but if you look
mm.
at the peace between Israel and Egypt, right now, if you look on Twitter, there's a lot more meetings between the Israeli ambassador and Egyptian ambassador in different countries. I just saw the Israeli ambassador and Egyptian ambassador in Washington getting together. And then I've seen another picture in the UK on social media. So I think this is warming up even the cold peace between Egypt and Israel and Jordan, Israel. And that's why, like I mentioned earlier, I really believe this trend will continue, not only warm up the old relationships, but actually nurture and create new ones as well.
It's just wonderful. You arrived in Dubai 6 years ago, and now are you still a one-man shop, or have you got a staff, or what tell us a bit about your office organization and what's on the ground there.
So we're actually quite lucky. We managed to create a beautiful team. So first of all, we're lucky to have our community, and all our community members really volunteer and help out to create this community. As what's special about a community is when all the members come together and everyone adds and everyone helps. This is something which really makes community special. So first of all, we are most thankful to our community for all of their great work. We as well have we recently brought down a new couple from Israel to work closely together with the new Israeli tourists that are visiting here. Have a few family members as well that moved down to assist. And of course, we have, as I mentioned earlier, about the new kosher, the increase of kosher restaurants and options in the UAE. So of course, we have many rabbis here as well, living here, working on the kosher project. So we are quite blessed to have a great team working together.
It really is truly remarkable. You're at the fine point of history, as history was literally being written during your tenure there, and hopefully it opens up to a much wider and a broader peace and relationship, and what you're doing, the relationships you're forging are very key on many levels. We do have some time for questions, and please put them in the chat box. We'd certainly welcome that for Rabbi Duchman. We wish we could get a little tour of your facility. Maybe you take some winter interns. We'd have people volunteering to come from Winnipeg to be interns in the winter. We're curious, just how hot is it there now?
So so first of all, you guys are always welcome, not only in the winter, in the summer, in the summer as well. And we look forward to inviting you and to having you guys come visit. And before we get to the questions, I wanted to actually say how amazing it is for our community. When I tell our community that I'm having a Zoom call with the community in Winnipeg, they're like, "What? Who would ever think that there's a community in Winnipeg, a thriving community, a community of young leaders where they want to learn about the other communities and they take interest in the international communities." So actually, people over here were inspired. We're inspired by you guys, and this is actually inspiration where we inspire each other. So I also want to thank Rabbi Altine and Ben and everyone for inspiring our community and for keeping your community even now during Corona, where we can't that people can't meet, and to make sure to gather and
Mm.
to learn about other communities and to be inspired and to grow. This is something really special, and the warmth of your community has definitely been brought to our community here in the UAE, and we're definitely thankful for this opportunity.
That's it's wonderful. We really appreciate you taking the time. We do have opportunity for questions. And tell us about the new synagogue. We have a question from Alta. Tell us about the new synagogue being built in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, so one second, sorry. Just about 2 years ago, there was a special visit here in the UAE, and they started this Human Fraternity Day where the rulers of the United Arab Emirates, led by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, has created something called the Abrahamic House. And in this Abrahamic House, he said that they would like to build a synagogue and a church on the same campus. And this is something which is currently being built in Saadiyat Island. Saadiyat Island is the cultural heart of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. It will be built by the end of 2022. It should be finished construction. And this is going to really be one of the most magnificent synagogues in the world. There's also going to be an educational center where people could really come, learn, and share the values of the UAE, of values of tolerance, of coexistence, acceptance, respect. This is a very special project which we've been working closely together with the government on, and we're really excited and looking forward for this to be built.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We do have another question from Elaine and Elliot asking, do you get a minyan there?
Yes, so usually we do have a minyan. Now with the COVID restrictions, we're actually blessed. The UAE has restricted gatherings to only 10 people. So I think they've known about the minyan. So we do we don't do it in our synagogue, but we go to a hotel where there's conference rooms. And when 10 people come there, they could pray and have a minyan. But of course, we're looking forward for once everyone is vaccinated, which actually here in the UAE, we are way ahead of other countries, still behind Israel, but quite in the lead. And then of course, things will open up more, and we will continue back to our weekly prayers as well.
Well, we'll have to have an excursion to see the new synagogue at the end of 2022. Maybe Rabbi Shmuley could organize a nice junket. Maybe Crown Heights, Abu Dhabi, and then Yerushalayim would be a very nice trip to have. We did have we had a question about the Abraham Accords, just to put in perspective, the Abraham Accords were, and Rabbi Duchman can correct me, were the agreement signed between Abu Dhabi, between UAE, Israel, and Bahrain, I believe. And so that happened in the fall of 2020. Is that right?
Yeah. So on August 13th, the White House put out a document that the UAE has agreed to sign official ties with Israel. A few weeks later, Bahrain followed as well, and they joined the signing in Washington, D.C., where both the foreign minister of the UAE, the foreign minister of Bahrain, and Prime Minister of Israel and President Trump has actually signed this Abrahamic agreement.
Wonderful. And now we have a tourist question about the prices of hotels and kosher meals. So is it an affordable place to visit?
Well, of course, there's Dubai is like you mentioned, is quite an international place. So you really have hotels on all levels. So it depends how in the city or where you would like to stay. But of course, one can visit the UAE with affordable pricing. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, I don't know how you guys will get here. It seems like we really, the mission to Mars from the UAE might be easier to fly from Winnipeg to the UAE. But of course, once you make it here, there's really all options when it comes to price range. It's a great place. We're only 2.5 hours away from Israel. So like you mentioned, Ben, it could be a combined trip, Abu Dhabi and Jerusalem. This is something which I would say a few months ago, people will look at you really strange if you say, well, our community is doing Abu Dhabi, Jerusalem, and now it's the norm. And in December, we were having 12 flights daily from
That's
Dubai
unbelievable.
to Tel Aviv. So this is definitely something which last year wasn't even possible.
It's it really is an amazing breakthrough, and really a groundbreaking. You're at the very forefront of a groundbreaking movement, a groundbreaking peace movement, and Bezras Hashem, it should continue and grow. We're very grateful for your time, and thank you so much for getting up early and for hosting us today in Dubai, and we look forward to seeing you in person. And so if there aren't any other questions, I turn it back to with thanks. Turn it back to Rabbi Shmuley.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Duchman, for generously sharing your time and experiences with us here in Winnipeg. Truly remarkable, the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making. It's amazing. You know, I think of when as this is happening, thinking of the prophetic vision that our forefather Jacob, Yaakov Avinu, had. You know, when he saw the ladder and God tells them, "Ufaratz yama v'kedma v'tzafon v'negba," that in the future, the Jewish people will spread forth to all corners of the world. And it's amazing that here we are connecting as one community, our community here in Winnipeg, and your community in Dubai. It's just incredible, and we are so appreciative of your time. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I just want to remind everyone that we do this again once every 2 weeks, and there's a lot of other exciting learning opportunities to join. You could visit us at Chabad-Winnipeg.org, or you could even download an app, jli.chabad-winnipeg.org, where you could see all of our upcoming events and connect with us virtually as we navigate this pandemic. And hopefully this will all end soon, and we'll be able to actually make that flight to the United Arab Emirates. Let's put it in the calendar, a tentative date, Rabbi Duchman.
Yes, like I mentioned before, really looking forward to welcoming you, Rabbi Shmuley, and your community.
Good evening, and a good day to you, Rabbi Duchman. A good day to you. A good evening to everyone else. Laila Tov, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are women welcome there? Can I ask a question? How are women treated there?
Women are very, very well treated. Many of our ministers are women, and it's a great country for many women here.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
They actually recently have this leadership from Women of the Emirates and Israeli women. You could look it up online. It's I'm sure you could see more leadership programs for women here in the UAE.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben.
No problem. All the best.